Pastor Cris.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I absolutely feel like it's an honor and a pleasure to be here. Every time that Jose contacts me, I'm like, yes, I love it, because I love sharing what I'm passionate about it. And what is my life? I just absolutely, my greatest desire is to bring people to know Christ, and giving this opportunity that one day was given to me to know him to other people. And when I understood church planting, I'm like, yes! And they actually going to make me a church planter? I couldn't believe it. I forget to take vacation. I forget to take days off. I know I'm not supposed to do that, but it's because I enjoy so much what I do. So, with that in mind, Jose asked me to do something. I am more like an organic type of person, and he asked me to speak about recruiting. And I'm like, what am I going to talk about that? Because it's like, for me, it's just I'm talking to people. But then I stop and start thinking about it. There are many principles that without realizing, it made it work. So those are the principles, the steps that I took that I want to share with you guys, okay? First of all, you have to decide what type of plant you're going to go. Yeah, two answers that I'm going to give you guys throughout this presentation. One is when to recruit, how to recruit, okay? This is what we're going to answer by the end. But there's a lot of things that we need to do before we even get there. And first, we need to decide, okay, what type of plant, what kind of model we're going to use. Are we going to go with the mother church? I'm not going to get in any details about this because I think that has been covered a lot with the other speakers. So I'm just going to touch on the things that are important for recruiting, okay? So for recruiting, am I going to use a church, mother church model? Am I going to go with a Lone Ranger? I believe that they both have those the needs in certain place. That's the only way you can go, you know? So once you decide, basically in North America, what we have seen that has worked better is using the mother church model, okay? It doesn't mean that the other one is wrong or bad. It just has worked better. It's less burning on the people that are planting the churches, okay? So that's actually the details about recruiting that we're going to cover. Now, if you are at Pastor Tim's church, where the church already believes in church planting, you can skip this step. But if you're not in a church like that, I'm going to tell you, I believe this is one of the most important steps. It's preparing the mother church. If the mother church doesn't believe in church planting, you're going to really have a hard time. So your recruiting starts with preparing the mother church at least 6 months before you even start the training, what we call the incubation with your core team. So for about 6 months, what are you going to do? You're going to sound the alarm. You're going to cast the vision. You are going to do what we're doing now. We are casting the vision. We're showing to you the amazing work that God has given us using church plant as a tool for evangelism, okay? That's what you're going to do for 6 months. And you're going to show the benefits, and you're not going to run away from answering to objections, okay? Running away from answers, from objections, it's creating problems for later. Face them. Embrace them. I understand your concerns. We're going to get there in a little bit. How do you do that? You preach. You talk about in meetings. You talk about while you're talking to people, having lunch with your members. You're just going to be network. You're going to be talking to people, and that's how you're going to help them have the passion and create the vision of church planting. Who does that? The pastor, the planter, the lay pastor, the elders, whichever other speakers get people involved. The more people that are involved, the more contagious it is. You know how exciting it is when you're planning a birthday party, or when it's only exciting because other people are coming. Because if you set up a whole birthday party and nobody showed up, how exciting is that? It's not exciting. Church planting, the birth of a new child, is only exciting when a lot of people are together. So involve other people. Then the objections. I like to take time to answer to this because I think this is the hardest thing, is to answer this while you're preparing the mother church. Because they have concerns. Are they legitimate? They are legitimate concerns. We first need to build up our church. Planting is going to harm the mother church. We will lose our fellowship. We like to be with people, right? So we're afraid we're going to lose the fellowship. We can afford it. The need, it's not urgent. It's not pressing. By the way, some of these ideas I took from all of the classes that I took. I went to Southern and I focused on church planting. At Andrews, I focused on church planting. So I'm borrowing this from my teachers, okay, if somebody recognized something here. But anyways, first I got the theory, then I got the practice. And in the practical, this is a reality. One of the major challenge that you have is convincing the mother church that church planting is evangelism. It's the way to go, okay? So we have this idea that we're gonna, how is the movie? You built and they will come. Well, that doesn't work anymore. You know, it's not because you built a tent, it's not because you have a church, and we're going to expect them to drive 1 hour to your church because we have one Seventh-day Adventist church for a major area. So that model doesn't work. So that's why the major part of everything you're doing is convincing the mother church that that's the way to go. And then answer questions. Well, we're not ready. We need to build up our church. Let me ask you guys a question. How do you learn? How many of you have children here? Okay. Your child comes to you and they don't know how to tie their shoes. And you're in a hurry. You have no time for that, so you go, you tie your shoes. Then they go again and several times, and you're tying their shoes. Tell me, when are they going to learn? They're never going to learn. You have to allow them to do it. Our church can be not where they're supposed to be. They're not ready, even financially, whatever it is. Guess how they're going to learn? Their spiritual life, their spiritual growth is going to happen when they're preparing other people. And what a better way than to be involved with the whole church. The church that I planted is called The Vine, and I'm trying to say it correctly because every time I say it, people think I'm saying divine. It's the Vine. The Vine Church. The main thing of the DNA that I wanted to create is a church that makes disciples. Two things that we have, making disciples and working outside of our walls. That's the main thing. So that's what I have been trying to put. I don't know a better word, but it's kind of like brainwashing them. That's bad, right? But anyways, you got my point. But it's inculcated in their mind that that's what we're going to do. And as they're doing, guess who is growing? They are growing. Oh, we don't have money. Guess when money shows up? Usually when we need it. Because majority of the church don't have just extra money just sitting there. But when there is a mission, people donate. Okay, continue because I want to make sure. So, as we prepare the church, the mother church, what is their role? What is the mother church role? To encourage, to coach, to help with financial assistance, to create, to help with the core team, and facilities, accountability, love, unity, prayer. So, now we're almost getting to recruiting, okay? Where do we find a church planter? So now that mother church is ready, the next step is, okay, where do I find the planter? The pastor can be the planter. A member of the church can be a planter. A student can be a planter. A harvester, an experienced planter. Somebody that has planted church before, and now this person, he or she, it's ready to plant more churches. Okay, if you are not the planter, choose the planter and allow the planter to be part of the entire process. This is extremely important. It's very hard for somebody else to fulfill your dream. Make sure that's not only your dream, make sure that's the dream of the planter too. Because you guys want to work together. You know, nobody's going to have that passion as you do. So that person has to be involved in the whole thing, and that passion has to be his passion, her passion. Look at me, even me, I was saying his. But anyways, what are the qualities of the people? This is not only the church planter. This is for your core team. What are the qualities that we're looking for? We're looking for somebody with visioning capacity. That is a word that's hard for me. I can't say it. Somebody say it. That, motivated, in other words. See, it's not only me. A lot of people can't. Thank you. So, okay, if you're going to wait as a church planter for your motivation to come from the outside, don't even begin. Because church planting, as far as ministries go, I think is one of the hardest the hardest one, but the most rewarding too. So you have to motivate yourself. I'm not doing this to get praise from people. I am doing this because I love the Lord. I understand my mission, and I'm going to obey him. Okay? Creates ownership of ministry. This is my baby. This is my passion. This is what I want to do. This is my thing. Yes, you want the people that are going to take the ministry and say, this is mine. One who relates to the unchurched. By the way, why are we doing this? Are we doing this just because we need a different style of preaching or worship service? I think we touched on that already. If we're not going to be reaching the unchurched, we don't need to exist. We are not, actually you touched on that yesterday, Jose. But yes, we're not setting up another club. It's not to be for me, it's to be for the people outside. So we need somebody that relates well with the unchurched. Spousal cooperation. I cannot emphasize more on this, of the importance of how this point here is. Without my husband's support, I would never be able to be here. Amen. I had in different areas that I was leader. There was one point that I was a Pathfinder leader. Pathfinder director, by the way. I didn't know what a Pathfinder was, but I heard that that's a great way to win young people, and I became a Pathfinder director. But anyways, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, and I thought you needed to be a master guide, and I became a master guide in 3 months because I thought I needed before school started. Anyways, that's a whole nother story. But as soon as I left, I was going to Southern. This other gentleman took my place, and he was great with the kids. He was actually my deputy director, and he was perfect, but his wife hated Pathfinder. His wife didn't support him, and she criticized so much that a club that was so wonderful just died because it didn't have the spousal support. If your husband or your wife wants to plant, but your heart is not there, both of you pray and ask God, because you need each other. It's kind of like a lonely job, so you need each other extremely. Number 6, effectively builds relationship. Somebody that is good developing relationship. Somebody that enjoys doing this, getting together, sitting down and talking. Number 7, committed to church growth. Somebody that wants to see the kingdom growth. Responsiveness to the community. Again, we touched a little bit when we talked about the unchurched. We need someone that wants to reach the community. One who uses the giftedness of others. Like my friend was telling Dustin. He was saying, recognize other people's gift, pass it on. Don't try to work by yourself. Somebody that can recognize the qualities that other people have. Number 10, flexibility. Let me tell you, I wish it was a little easier, but with church planting, you need to be flexible. There is no way to emphasize this more. You need to be flexible. Somebody that builds group cohesiveness. Yes. Somebody that demonstrates resiliency. Don't give up. It's going to be difficult, but you're going to love it. Later you will, I swear. And exercise faith. Now, Pastor Cris, I don't have all of these 13 qualities. It's okay. Build a team that you guys, whatever you're lacking on you, they have it. Put a team together. It can't be somebody that is against something like this. But maybe I'm not strong in all 13 qualities, but I'm putting people in my team that can come together, that we complement each other. Now, still, before you recruit, there is one more step before you start recruiting. How are you going to recruit? Are you going to do open for all? I'm going to come in the front of the church and say, whoever wants to come, let's build a church plant? Or are you going to go with a special invitation? This is the way I look. It depends on a few things that you're going to have to look at it. Are you going to a specific area? Are you close to other Seventh-day Adventist churches? Is the area where you are saturated with SDAs? Are the people there secular-minded, or are they mostly religious? Do you want to plant for a specific ethnic group? That. Are you going to a big city, a small town, suburban? Those things are very important for you to decide if you're just going to open to everybody or if you're not. Still, even when you open to everybody, you're going to have to do some type of vetting, okay? This is my experience. The less specific, the more open you can be. Because basically, I'm going to an area, there's no SDA or basically very little SDA. Pretty much wherever I find a place to rent would be fine because they need our church everywhere. So you're not looking for something very, very specific. Even though when you come to your target group, you're going to become more specific. Now, when you already know that you need something specific, because I am going to go to this part of town, and this is a very affluent area, and we're going to speak this language. So then you're going to look for people that fit with your target group, okay? Sometimes you will know your target group before you start recruiting, before you start planting. Sometimes the need is so great that you can be a little more broad, okay? Now, the other thing you need to know is what type of plant are you going to do? Are you going to be the hiving off, like we have small groups that grow from that small group? Are you going to do the colonization, where you take a group from your church and you put in a different area? Are you going to do partnership, where there's a church that is already planting, let's partner with them and help them? Or are you going to do multiple services? Sometimes in your church, you can have an English and a Spanish service, and you grow from there. The most experience that I have is the colonization one. So basically now you're ready to recruit, kind of. Where do you find your team? Well, at the mother church, members of small groups, partner church, sister church, spiritual-led contacts, members living in your target area, if you already have the target area. Hint, I think I already mentioned that majority of your team should reflect the age, gender, race, and culture you are trying to reach. Now, the people, while you're building that core group, you want people that share your vision, share your passion. It's very hard for you to work with people. Sometimes we just go with the flow and like, oh, I'm best friends with this person, and let me just get that person. But if that person doesn't share your vision, you guys are not going the same direction. So make sure it's people that you share your vision. Have people that put mission first. Individuals who are magnet to other people. You know those people that everybody wants to talk to them? Those are great people to be in your core team. Individuals who match the demographic to be reached. Do not just take any warm body. Okay, this one here, some of the more experienced church planters are not going to like what I'm going to say. Don't take a warm body, or sometimes it's okay. Well, let me tell you my experience. People want to be with people. Yes, you need to have a vetting process. But when are we vetting them and saying you are going to be part or you're not going to be part? Do we do that right at the beginning? Or when do we do that? You know, like when you're having a meeting for young adults or teenagers, if there's one or two people there, most like nobody else is going to come, because they come, they look at the door, and they're like, there's two people there, I'm not going there. But if there's 10, 20 people, they get more excited. You see what I'm talking about? When I started church planting and I went to all of those wonderful classes, by the way, I had classes with, I think I had one class about church planting or multiplier, growing the church, with all of the top names. I had with Tom Evans, I had with Anthony Wagner Smith, I had with the one that was before him, I forgot his name, but I had a class with him too. At Southern, I had with Alan Parker, he planted 9 churches. So I had with the best people, so I'm ready. I graduated and I'm going to plant churches, and I thought it was going to be like step 1, step 2, step 3, and everything was going to be perfect. And then I went to the field, and pretty much that is my reality, okay? Yeah, it's like, woo! And sometimes It's not only about the recruiting, it's everything else. That's why I'm telling you, you have to be flexible. Sometimes, no one is going to be responding to your invitation. What do? Give up? Accept those that are answering. However, well, I'm going to get to the but in the next slide. Sometimes you're new to the church. You really don't know their personalities, and you start vetting them, and you have no idea how God could use these people. Now, you have to be careful, because like other presenters mentioned, sometimes they have the wrong intentions for church planting. They're not planting a church because they love the mission. They're planting a church because they don't like the music in the other church. They don't like how they dress. And they say, you know what? They are not holy enough. I am going to plant a church that, my church, everybody's going to be holier. Or whatever ideas that they have. Nobody's going to say that, but unfortunately, that's how they act. So, how do we really know these people? Some people you already know. You've been in the church for a long time and you know that's their intention, but sometimes you just don't know. The way I did was pretty much anybody that wanted to be part of it, I accept them to come. But I started training, I started meeting. I didn't give anybody positions. I didn't choose the church planter, the lay pastor. I was the planter. I didn't choose any of the leadership. I started training, and I dealt with the difficult issues. Some of them, should we have potluck with meat? Should we have a female pastor? How should we dress? And this is what happens. As you're talking about issues, in reality, they start eliminating themselves. I didn't even have to eliminate anybody. I didn't eliminate anybody, to be honest with you. They start realizing, maybe this is not for me. Now, the next step is 6 to 9 months of incubation periods, a training period. For me, that period was my real recruiting period. Because there I could see the people that I could relate. By the way, I'm the church planter, okay? If I don't relate well with you, we're going to be butting heads, and it's going to be difficult. So as much as we want to embrace everybody, sometimes it's not the right group, and it's not a sin. So I started seeing who did I relate well, who did I not relate well. And then there was this couple that came to me after we talked about they wanted to only serve vegetarian meals. And I didn't even tell them we have to serve meat. That was not my point. I was just discussing, okay, what is going to be the DNA of this church? Are we going to have those problems in potluck because we have a guest that brings something with meat and then we throw it away and then we lose that person? Or are we going to be the kind of person that hey, they didn't know and it's okay? So what kind of church are we going to be? So I wasn't trying to push to one side or the other side. What I was trying to say is, let's talk about it. And that day, I had 22 people in this room. And 20 said, we're going to serve meat. Obviously not unclean meat. Obviously, we're not going to be pushing to serve meat. We're going to think about Whole Food Store, okay? They have everything in there. But they emphasize organic, healthy. But they don't judge you because you wanted to get something with meat. They welcome you. That puts the barrier down. Then we can teach them about Christ and take them in the journey instead of what's happening here. So, and I forgot to put my time watcher. I have no idea how my time is going. Jose, how long more do I have?
You've got about 10 minutes.
I have 10 minutes, so I'm good. I went to a church that they had a gym about this size that they did once a month potluck. And they had 2 tables for vegans, 2 tables for vegetarians, 2 tables for gluten-free, and then they had the desserts. Wonderful, welcoming church, but I'm going to tell you, the person that was a meat eater that came to visit for the first time, they would feel, wow, everybody but me. It's inclusive to everybody but me in this church. And then we have the generational gaps. We go to boomers. This is how they see it. If I preach about health, by the way, I'm the health department director for my conference, and I am 100% vegan. I have rheumatoid arthritis, and I treat my arthritis only with natural treatment. So I'm not against the health message. I am a living proof that it works. Until 2 years ago, I was for 4 years in a wheelchair. I couldn't walk. I believe in the health message. But if the health message is pushing people away from the gospel, we're doing it wrong. Okay? So, I got lost. Oh, generations, yes. So we have the boomers. The boomers say, like, not all, this is generalized, okay? Don't be offended if you don't think this way, but just to have an idea of different generations, okay? The boomer generation says, if we preach vegetarians, but we serve meat, we're being hypocrite, okay? Now we have the Gen Z and the millennial generation. If we eat meat at home, but at the church we're eating only vegan, we are being hypocrites. Do you understand? There is a generational difference, and we need to understand where we are. The health message is the right arm of the gospel. The health message is not the gospel. So, I'm getting in trouble here, man. So anyways, my point is, if the health message is going to bring people to the church, yes. If the health message is pushing people away from the church, we need to change. So, we talk about it, different issues, and that started eliminating, they eliminated themselves. And we allowed that to happen. This couple called me afterwards because they decided that we were going to serve meat. And they called me and they said, we don't feel that God is calling us to help with your ministry, planting churches. But we want to continue serving. They're very active in the church. They have an amazing work in the church where they were at, and they wanted to continue there. And I was like, if God tell you that, praise the Lord. You're serving God, and that's what you're supposed to do. It didn't work to work with us, but they have their own ministry, and it's okay. Let me make sure I covered everything. Start meeting. Use training as a way to select people. Talk about hard issues. Most times they eliminate themselves. Do not assign minister or leadership positions yet. I love that things would work, everything very organized, but sometimes if you needed to go backwards, that was my reality here, I didn't assign any positions, because imagine if I had given the position, very important position, to this couple that at the end, they pretty much were against everything we believed. It would be a mess. So wait until later. Then what happened? Wait until you identify the people's gifts. So, what is recruiting? Recruiting. It's preparing the church. It's casting the vision. It's having conversations. It's networking. It's having meetings. It's training. It's setting the DNA. When does recruiting starts? Recruiting starts from the time that you're having this idea. When the baby is not even a womb yet, it's like you're planning to have a child, that's when recruiting starts. When does recruiting end? Never. It never ends. There is no beginning, middle, and end. Recruiting is always. There are 3 things that you're never going to stop doing while you're doing church planting. Recruiting, training, and looking for a place to rent. Okay? I have been meeting in this place for 1 year, and I have been looking for other places. It's difficult to find a place that is going to be perfect. Well, that's a whole nother preaching. But anyways, the point is, when you have that in mind, understand that recruiting never ends, training never ends, because discipleship ends. It never ends. It's the same thing. What are you doing in training? You're creating disciples. And one more point before I get to my last 2 slides. How many pastors I have here? Okay, pastors. We church planters need you. Pastors don't have to be afraid. By the way, if you're here, I know you already have the right concept of church planting, but I'm emphasizing this because maybe you can take back to your friends and share with them. We need you. If the pastors don't believe in church planting, it's going to be really difficult for a planter, somebody else, to be able to do the job. And we need you to spread to your friends the importance of church planting. So, with these ideas of, we're never going to stop recruiting, training, and looking for a place to rent, have that in mind. Be flexible. I wanted to put this at the end because you need to remember that. Things are going to change constantly. When we talk about the worship service, when you don't have a church with 1,000 members, that everybody already knows how to do everything perfectly, you have a brand new church, and hopefully with a lot of people that are unchurched, things are going to be very different. Make it easy. I have 4 parts of my service. That's it. How long do I have? Okay. Done, I'm done. Okay, I have 4 parts of my church service. That's it. We come in and do announcements, and I have a little video of like 1 minute and 30 seconds. That's it. We have announcements. We have a prayer time, praise, and preaching. That's it. We don't have that thing. Let's announce who's going to sing. Let's sit down, get up, do this, do that. We don't have any of this. None of that. It's simple. Why? Because we want to make it simple so we can duplicate. Because now we already have about 50 members. Well, register in the books, we have 50, but we have people coming between 60 and 80 people. Yeah, we have more people coming than people in the books, which usually is the opposite, right? So, and I wanted to make it very easy and simple, because when we have about 100 people, guess what I want to do? I want to take about 20 and plant somewhere else. And if I make it too complicated, what's going to happen? This is too hard. I can't do it again. And just give up, correct? Make it easy. Be positive. Your attitude sets the mood. This is very, very important. Everything trickles down from leadership down. If you're not positive, if you don't believe it, it's going to affect everybody else. And spend time with your people. Get to know your people. That's how you're going to recruit. You're going to recruit from the time that you're casting the vision all the way to years after you have launched. You're going to continue recruiting. Get to know your people. So now after everything is going and you already know the people, it takes a different form. Now you know exactly who could go to certain positions. But until then, spend time with them. Get to know them. And I just want to finish with the picture. Oh, it's hard to see. But the pictures of the church that I'm involved. I have one more church, but I didn't plant that one. They already exist. It's a Haitian church. But the church that I planted is the first one, is the Divine SDA Church. We launched in the middle of the pandemic last year. Was a lot of adventures, I have to tell you that. So we launched in September 2020. We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary. And right there you see the picture with 83 people in the pulpit. I put everybody in the front to take a quick picture there. And the middle picture is the Divine Spanish group that we're starting in the American church. We have a Sabbath school class in Spanish every week, and once a month we have a service in Spanish. And the last one is a Brazilian group that they contacted me because I speak Portuguese, but it's 5 hours away from where I am. So this group, it's a small group that pretty much is growing on their own, like the hiving off model. But these are the 2 small groups that we're starting from the church that I have, that we started in September. And that's it. Feel free to contact me. There is my information, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to contact me.
This is good stuff. I think we need more pastors like Pastor Cris planting churches in the North American division. Absolutely. I love your enthusiasm. I love that church planting really provides the framework for discipling and baptizing.
Yes, absolutely.
It really does. Hey, any thoughts, any questions that you guys would like to share with Pastor Cris? Oh, Pastor Randy, let me bring the mic.
Pastor Cris, where are you, the one you planted, September 2020, in the middle of the pandemic? Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Where are you meeting? I noticed it looks like a church. So
Yeah,
where are you meeting?
we are renting from another Sunday church. Yeah. And it worked really well because they have an open place, more a contemporary style. So it really worked well for us. But it still have a lot of difficulties because we can only meet because the place where they rent, they pay $18,000 per month. So to be able to keep up with their rent, they rent to another 10 other churches. So basically, we only have like that small period of time. It's hard for us to grow because we can't do anything else. We can only use a Saturday morning. That's why I'm still looking for other places. But we deal with what we have.
And these have been planted and growing during the pandemic.
Yes, it grew during the pandemic.
When it comes to church planting during the pandemic, it seems crazy, but is it fair to say that, church plants, and I don't know if this is the best way to describe it, they're kind of in survival mode already because so much of the work goes into just having the service and discipling and equipping and keeping the team together. So because the church plant is already in survival mode, it seems like church plants are really built for COVID. I know there's other challenges, but they're already used to just kind of going week to week in this type of mindset.
Yes.
So I don't know, is it easier to plant, do you think, during the pandemic? Is it harder?
I believe that, I think everything is the way you look at things. That's why I say your attitude is going to affect everybody else. What I noticed throughout history was every time there was suffering, there was confusion, there was poverty, that's when people seek God more.
Yes.
And I saw COVID as this great opportunity. The first thing I did, I was still at the other church. I was an associate pastor at a different church. And the first thing I did was, I had no idea what to do. By the way, guys, I'm the pastor that I'm learning as I go, okay? I don't know where things in the Bible are. I don't have Bible verses memorized because I wasn't raised as a Seventh-day Adventist Christian at all. I was atheist. So for me, things are very difficult. And the first thing that I did when pandemic happened was I made a little video and I was like, hey, if you start questioning about God, why would he allow the pandemic and things like this to happen? If you want to have a Bible study, let me know. And I put on Facebook. And I had about 20 people responding and wanting to study the Bible. And so I think what happened was after a few months, because COVID started in March, we launched it in September. I thought that there were two things that was going to happen. I could be wrong, but that's how I felt. That for a time, people are going to be missing church, but then they're going to get used to not have church. And it got to a point that I was like, how can we go back to have church safely? And God was so wonderful because the place we found, they are set up in tables like this. So everybody, we were able to separate by family units. So everybody had masks, by the way, there's a big fight in North Carolina. I don't know how it is here because here everybody accepted putting masks and stuff like that. Over there, they don't want to put masks, they don't want to vaccinate. It's very confusing. But I was able to separate people and everybody's very far. It's actually farther than where you guys are over there. So that's how we were able to come back. But I do believe, to answer your question, I do believe that COVID actually helped us.
Thank you so much. I really appreciated your presentation. I was just wondering if you could speak to decision-making in the context of church planting. For example, you talked about some difficult decisions that you had to make in terms of, meat at potluck and a female pastor and some of these other issues. How do you navigate making some of those tough decisions when you're working with a team that I assume you want to get that buy-in, but at the end of the day, you obviously kind of have a direction you're wanting to lead as well. So how do you navigate that? Who makes those tough decisions and how?
I believe in team decisions. I don't like to be the how do you say it in English, top down? Like to say it's my way or the highway. However, there are certain things that I believe from the bottom of my heart that I would be fake if I would just accept everybody's input. But I'm the kind of person that I need to convince you. But if you're not convinced, I am not going to go against you. things that are not that important, because we as Seventh-day Adventists, we try to put everything as biblical principles. And a lot of them are just traditions. Okay? So things that were not biblical principles, I didn't mind. For an example, the meat. I wanted to expose to them very clear. I am Brazilian, and we are more confrontational. Americans don't like to confront so much. So sometimes when I was explaining to them to try to convince them what I explained to you guys about the meat, it's not that it's my way. It's because I have seen it, that we're pushing people away from God because of our health message, of the way we do health message, not the health message, the way we do it. So I will explain to them, but if at the end they say, no, we're not going to serve meat, I accept what they're saying. They're not biblical principles. Now, if it is a biblical principle, then I have to step down and say, I'm sorry, this is biblical, there's no way around, and it has to be done that way. But you're going to have to navigate with your group. There's not like one answer, because some groups, if you push too hard, they're going to just melt it away. Like the Brazilian group, very confrontational. And when we had the discussion about the issues, it was maybe, a 10 hours discussion, babe? Not I discussing with them discussing among themselves and then to me. So there are certain groups that you can't push. You have to allow them come to a conclusion, but you have to face it. Running away, it's not going to help you. It's just going to delay the problem. And one thing that I cannot emphasize enough, if you have a church, 1,000 members church, 300 plus member churches, that you have an issue, you have somebody that starts saying, you know what, I don't believe in the Holy Spirit. I don't believe in the Trinity. There is a pocket of people that are saying that, but it doesn't affect the church so much. Okay? Now, when you're dealing with a church plant, and you have 10 members and one come and say the Holy Spirit is not God, or whatever their ideas that they have, that will kill your church plant. So you have to deal with the issues, and this is all part of recruiting.
Really sounds like recruiting and establishing your DNA is really important.
Extremely.
I mean, non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable.
Because the ones that do have hang-ups, they'll discover on their own that maybe being a part of this church plant isn't for them.
Yes.
And it's better for them to realize that than for us just to sometimes maybe tell them. Yeah.
Yes.
Any other thoughts or questions? I put together a couple of questions thinking about, thank you, Pastor Chris. Thank you so much. Let's give her a hand.
Thank you.